What you are about to watch is an urgent message God gave to one of his daughters for the purpose of preparation against what is to come. In this experience, Jesus reveals 5 shocking events that are about to take place, much sooner than you think. Watch this video to the end to fully understand these truths that were revealed. Now, kindly tell us where you are connecting from so that we can connect as a family. Also, drop a word of prayer for someone, or if you seek prayer, drop your prayer request so that our prayer team can start praying for you along with many others. I will now begin reading today's experience. My name is Refilla Mitchell, and I need to tell you what happened to me on December 22, 2025. But to understand why I was chosen to receive this message, why Jesus appeared to me and showed me what's coming in 2026, you need to understand the life I lived before that day. I came into this world as a fighter. That's what I've always said. I'm a single mother of 3 teenage boys, living in Southern California, working as a credit analyst. But those simple facts don't capture the journey that brought me here, or the scars I carry, or the strength I discovered through suffering. My earliest memory is of violence. I was 5 or 6 years old, standing in the doorway between our living room and kitchen. I can still see it perfectly, my mother standing in front of the door that led to the garage, my father's rage escalating from angry words to something much worse. He started grabbing objects from the kitchen counter, the toaster, the blender, a can opener, and hurling them at my mother with such force that they dented the metal door when she dodged them. When he ran out of small appliances, he started throwing pots and pans. The sound was deafening. My mother was crying, begging him to stop, trying to protect herself. I was terrified. I genuinely believed my father was going to kill her that day. He never replaced that door. 4 years, those dents served as a constant reminder of his violence, his anger, his capacity for destruction. But the physical violence wasn't the worst of it. When I was 7 years old, the 8-year-old daughter of a woman my father was dating came to me and my twin brother with a horrifying confession. She told us that our father was hurting her, that he was sexually assaulting her. We were children ourselves, scared, confused, and terrified of our father. We didn't know what to do. We didn't tell anyone. We just buried it and tried to pretend it hadn't happened. My parents divorced when I was 6. My father's abuse was only part of the story. My mother remarried and divorced 6 times while I was growing up. 6 different stepfathers. 6 different households. We moved constantly, for different states, countless different schools. I was a sensitive child, a people pleaser, which made me an easy target. I was bullied relentlessly from elementary school through high school. When I was 14, I learned the real reason for my parents' divorce. My father had been molesting my 2 older half-sisters. The truth about what I'd always known, that he was a predator and a pedophile, was finally validated. I also learned that he had remarried and now had 2 young stepdaughters and a baby half-sister, all under the age of 5. The knowledge haunted me. I visited them once, and afterward, I couldn't shake the feeling that my father might be hurting those little girls too. I came up with a plan. I called and asked if I could visit again, and when I did, I took each of the girls to the park separately and asked them if my father had ever hurt them. They both said no. Years later, when I was 26, I married a man I knew was wrong for me. He was a high-functioning alcoholic, a narcissist, and a womanizer. I knew it before the wedding. I had always had a connection with the spiritual realm, always sensed when something was right or wrong, and I kept receiving clear messages: don't marry him. Don't do it. I called off the wedding 3 times. But I was so desperate for security, for a family of my own, for some sense of stability after my chaotic childhood. I had no self-worth, no sense of identity. So I married him anyway. I spent 11 years enduring emotional, mental, and verbal abuse from that man. I don't regret the marriage entirely. It gave me 3 incredible sons who are the light of my life, and it taught me hard lessons about myself and about what I would and wouldn't tolerate. But at the time, I didn't see the patterns. I didn't understand that I had married an abusive man because I'd grown up in an abusive household. I didn't connect the dots. In 1999, while I was pregnant with my first son, I received news that my father had been tried and convicted of child molestation. He was sentenced to 44 years in prison, the maximum sentence in his state. Before the sentencing, I was given the option to write a letter to the judge. I did. I recommended the maximum sentence. He received it. The validation I felt was complicated. Yes, justice had been served. Yes, other children would be protected from him. But the guilt remained, guilt that I hadn't done more, hadn't spoken up sooner, hadn't saved my half-sisters or his stepdaughters from years of abuse. On May 29, 2004, I had my first near-death experience during the birth of my third son. Before the one I had days ago. The delivery went terribly wrong. The placenta wouldn't deliver naturally, and when the nurse pulled on the umbilical cord, it broke off. The doctor tried to manually remove the placenta, and the pain was unbearable. I started hemorrhaging. They rushed me to the operating room. I remember the anesthesiologist placing the oxygen mask over my face, asking me to count backward from 100. I tried to stay awake, but I couldn't fight it. When I woke up, I wasn't in the operating room anymore. I was in what I can only describe as heaven, home. I was bathed in beautiful, warm, golden light and surrounded by angels and divine beings. I didn't have a physical body, but I was still me, my consciousness, my energy, my vibration. I could see that we were all connected, that we were all one. Everyone's energy wove in and out of each other's like a beautiful harmonic progression. The peace, the love, the contentment I felt was beyond anything that exists in human vocabulary. No words can adequately describe it. It was like being wrapped in the softest cashmere blanket infused with golden sunshine. It was exhaling after holding your breath your entire life. It was finding your center and knowing, absolutely knowing, that you were safe and loved. Time didn't exist there as we understand it. I received messages, not through words, but through pure knowing. 3 messages came to me over and over: we are unconditionally loved. Everything is always as it's supposed to be. Everything will be all right. I was shown the past, not just my past, but the past of everyone and everything. I understood why things had happened. I understood that there was a higher purpose and reason for everything, both good and bad. I wanted to stay. I didn't want to come back. But I woke up with a doctor yelling at me to open my eyes. I was cold, heavy, and angry. Angry that he'd woken me, angry that I was back in my body, angry that I couldn't return home. Later, I learned that my heart had stopped in the operating room. I'd had complications due to mitral valve prolapse. They'd nearly lost me. When I told my husband what I'd experienced, he looked at me with embarrassment and shame and told me I was crazy, that it must have been a dream. In that moment, I decided not to tell anyone else. If my own husband didn't believe me, no one would. It took me 6 or 7 years before I had the courage to start talking about my experience, and even then, only with close family members. But that experience changed me. It gave me hope when I'd lost all faith. It taught me that even in my darkest moments, I was loved, I was safe, and everything would be all right. I started making positive changes in my life, learning to love myself, recognizing my worth, refusing to be a doormat anymore. The years that followed weren't easy. 3 years after my near-death experience, I filed for divorce when I discovered my husband had slept with my best friend of 10 years. I was laid off from my job 3 separate times over the next decade as the financial industry collapsed and restructured. My mother suffered a stroke and died within 2 days. My beloved cat of 19 years passed away, followed shortly by my dog. I faced financial ruin, nearly ended up homeless, and struggled constantly to provide for my boys. But through it all, I held on to those 3 messages. I am unconditionally loved. Everything is as it's supposed to be. Everything will be all right. I studied spiritual modalities, crystals, energy healing, Reiki. I became a Reiki master and started a small holistic healing business called Ace Holistic Healing. I discovered I was an empath, which explained why I'd always felt different, always picked up on others' emotions so intensely. I learned to trust my intuition, to listen to my spirit guides, to forgive those who had hurt me, including my father. Forgiveness was the hardest lesson. It took me years to truly forgive my father for what he'd done, to forgive my mother and grandparents for not protecting us, to forgive my bullies and my ex-husband, and most importantly, to forgive myself, for not calling Child Protective Services, for ignoring the signs about my stepsisters, for staying in an abusive marriage, for all my failures and mistakes. But when I finally did forgive, I felt free. Free from the chains of the past. Free to move forward stronger, braver, and wiser. By late 2025, I was struggling again. The economy was unstable, and I'd been laid off for the 4th time. I was working 3 part-time jobs with no benefits, barely making ends meet. My oldest son was in college, my middle son was dealing with severe anxiety, and my youngest needed braces we couldn't afford. The stress was crushing me. In October, I started having chest pains, sharp, stabbing sensations that took my breath away. But I didn't have health insurance, and I couldn't afford an ER visit. So I ignored them. I told myself it was just stress, just anxiety. I meditated, used my crystals, prayed. It would pass. By December, the chest pains were constant. I was dizzy, short of breath, exhausted. My boys begged me to see a doctor, but I couldn't. We needed every dollar for rent and food. On December 21st, I worked my evening shift at the restaurant where I was a hostess, came home, helped my youngest with his homework, kissed my boys goodnight, and collapsed into bed. The pain in my chest was different that night, heavier, more insistent, radiating down my left arm. I remember praying, "Please, just let me make it to Christmas. Just 4 more days. Let me give my boys one more Christmas." I fell asleep with that prayer on my lips. I didn't wake up on December 22nd. My youngest son, Tyler, found me unresponsive in my bed that morning. He called 911. Paramedics worked on me for nearly 20 minutes before they got my heartbeat back. I'd been clinically dead, no heartbeat, no brain activity, for 8 minutes. But during those 8 minutes, I was somewhere else. Just like in 2004, I found myself in that beautiful golden light, surrounded by divine beings and angels. I was home again. The peace, the love, the overwhelming sense of belonging washed over me like a wave. But this time was different. This time, I had a visitor. He appeared before me, not with a physical form like in paintings, but as pure, radiant light. Yet somehow, I could perceive him. I knew who he was instantly, not because of what he looked like, but because of what I felt emanating from him: infinite compassion, perfect understanding, and unconditional love that was beyond anything human hearts could contain. It was Jesus. I wasn't a traditionally religious person. My experiences with organized religion had left me disillusioned. But in that moment, all my doubts dissolved. This wasn't about religion or denominations or theological arguments. This was about truth, pure and simple. He didn't speak with audible words. Communication there happens through pure knowing, thought and feeling transferred instantaneously, completely, perfectly. But I'll do my best to translate what he conveyed to me into human language. He told me that the world had drifted far from love, from compassion, from genuine connection with the divine. He showed me that people had become consumed with politics, with materialism, with hatred of those who disagreed with them. He revealed to me that even many who called themselves Christians had lost their way, more concerned with power and being right than with demonstrating his love. He explained that what was coming would shake everything: governments, economies, institutions, belief systems. He showed me that the purpose of this shaking was to wake people up, to strip away the illusions, to force humanity to confront what truly matters. And then he began to show me what was coming in 2026. He showed me the first event with such clarity that I felt like I was watching it happen in real time. He revealed to me that in April of 2026, President Donald Trump would make a decision that would fracture the United States more deeply than at any time since the Civil War. I saw Trump in a room surrounded by advisors. His face was set with determination, the expression of a man convinced he was doing the right thing, convinced he was fighting against corruption and evil. He told me that Trump would use his executive authority to order the arrest of multiple high-ranking officials from the FBI and CIA, people he believed had committed treason against him and against the American people. He showed me the announcement, Trump at a podium, flanked by loyalists, declaring that he was finally draining the swamp, that he was exposing the deep state that had worked to undermine his presidency. He revealed to me that Trump would order the arrest of 17 current and former intelligence officials on charges of treason, conspiracy, and sedition. He showed me that Trump genuinely believed he was saving America, that he was convinced these officials had engaged in illegal surveillance, had fabricated evidence, had conspired to overthrow the will of the voters. He revealed to me that Trump saw himself as a warrior fighting against corruption. But he also showed me the consequences of this action. Within hours of the announcement, he revealed to me massive protests would erupt across the country. In Washington, D.C., over 1 million people would descend on the Capitol, some supporting Trump's actions, others calling him a dictator and demanding his immediate removal from office. He showed me the violence that would follow. I saw clashes in the streets, Trump supporters fighting with protesters, police overwhelmed and unable to maintain order, federal buildings being stormed by angry mobs on both sides. He revealed to me that within the first week, more than 20 people would die in the chaos, and hundreds would be injured. But the real crisis, he showed me, would happen at the state level. He revealed to me that the governors of California, New York, Illinois, Washington, Oregon, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Vermont would issue a joint statement refusing to recognize the arrests as legitimate. They would declare that Trump had crossed a constitutional line, that he was engaging in political persecution, and that they would not cooperate with federal authorities. They would vow to protect any officials within their borders from what they called authoritarian overreach. He showed me Trump's response, immediate and furious. He would threaten to withhold federal funding from those states. He would declare the governors in contempt of federal law. He would suggest deploying federal troops to enforce compliance. And the nation, he revealed to me, would split. He showed me the economic consequences. Interstate commerce would be disrupted as protests blocked major highways. Truckers would refuse to deliver to certain states. Grocery store shelves would empty in major cities. Gas prices would spike as supply chains fractured. He revealed to me that the stock market would drop 30% in just 2 weeks as international investors lost confidence in American stability. He showed me something that particularly broke my heart. He revealed to me that churches would split over this crisis. Congregations that had worshipped together for generations would fracture as members took different political sides. Pastors would be forced out of their pulpits for refusing to endorse one position or the other. He showed me church buildings sitting empty because the communities had destroyed themselves over politics. He told me that this crisis would last through the summer. He showed me that eventually, a compromise would be reached, some charges dropped, some officials quietly resigning, both sides claiming victory while the nation remained deeply wounded and divided. But he explained to me why this had to happen. He revealed to me that Americans had made politics into an idol, had placed their hope in political leaders rather than in him, had allowed political affiliation to become more important than love and compassion. He showed me that this shaking would force people to confront their idolatry, to see how far they drifted from what truly matters. He told me that many would turn back to genuine faith during this crisis, not to political religion, but to authentic relationship with the divine. He revealed to me that house churches would multiply as people left politicized institutions and sought genuine community and worship. After showing me the first event, he paused. I could feel his deep sorrow, the sorrow of a father watching his children suffer, knowing the pain was necessary for their growth but grieving it nonetheless. Then he showed me the second event, and even in that place of perfect peace, I felt horror at what I was seeing. He revealed to me that in September of 2026, President Trump would announce what he called the greatest medical breakthrough in American history, a complete cure for Alzheimer's disease. He showed me Trump at a press conference in the Rose Garden, surrounded by pharmaceutical executives and scientists in white coats. Trump was animated, excited, declaring that American ingenuity had achieved what the rest of the world thought impossible. He revealed to me that Trump would announce that a treatment called Neurogen Alpha had shown miraculous results in clinical trials, completely reversing Alzheimer's symptoms and restoring cognitive function. He showed me that Trump would sign an emergency executive order granting immediate authorization for the treatment to be distributed nationwide. He revealed to me that Trump would bypass the normal FDA approval processes, citing the urgency of helping the millions of Americans suffering from Alzheimer's and their families. He showed me the political pressure behind this decision. Trump needed a victory after the chaos of April. The pharmaceutical company had promised this would restore his popularity and secure his legacy. Economic advisors had shown him projections of stock market gains and job creation. He revealed to me that Trump genuinely believed he was helping people, that he saw himself as a hero bringing hope to desperate families. But then he showed me what would happen next, and it was terrifying. He revealed to me that Neurogen Alpha had not been adequately tested. In the rush to bring it to market, in the pressure to achieve a political and economic victory, critical safety protocols had been skipped. The treatment appeared to work in the short term, but it had catastrophic long-term effects that researchers hadn't discovered or had ignored. He showed me that by early October, just weeks after the treatment began being administered widely, patients would start developing severe symptoms. At first, doctors would dismiss these as adjustment reactions or attribute them to the patient's pre-existing conditions. But he revealed to me that the pattern would quickly become undeniable. The treatment, he showed me, was actually causing a rapid onset prion disease, similar to Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease but far more aggressive and, horrifyingly, transmissible through bodily fluids. He revealed to me that Neurogen Alpha was essentially creating a human form of mad cow disease that could spread from person to person. He showed me the horror that would unfold. Patients who had received the treatment would deteriorate rapidly, far faster and far worse than their original Alzheimer's symptoms. Within weeks of receiving Neurogen Alpha, they would lose all cognitive function, develop severe muscle spasms and seizures, and eventually fall into comas. The mortality rate would be nearly 80%. But worse, far worse, he revealed to me that healthcare workers who had been exposed to patients' blood, saliva, or other bodily fluids would also become infected. Doctors and nurses who had administered the treatment, who had cared for patients, would start showing symptoms themselves. He showed me the CDC issuing emergency alerts in early November. The treatment would be immediately suspended, but he revealed to me that by that point, over 3 million Americans would have already received it. The contamination would have already spread through the healthcare system. He showed me hospitals overwhelmed beyond anything we'd seen with COVID-19. He revealed to me that entire hospital wings would have to be quarantined. Healthcare workers would flee in terror, refusing to treat infected patients. Families would be barred from visiting dying loved ones. Bodies would pile up in temporary morgues because funeral homes would refuse to handle them. He showed me the economic devastation that would follow. The stock market would crash completely, worse than 1929, worse than 2008. He revealed to me that within weeks, unemployment would reach 30% as businesses shut down and the economy ground to a halt. International borders would close to American travelers. Other countries would ban American products out of fear of contamination. He showed me grocery stores with empty shelves, not from hoarding this time, but because the supply chain had completely collapsed. He revealed to me that gas stations would run dry. Power grids would become unstable as workers abandoned their posts. Society would teeter on the edge of complete breakdown. He showed me the human cost in excruciating detail. I saw elderly patients in hospital beds, their bodies racked with seizures, their minds completely gone. I saw their children standing outside quarantine windows, pressing their hands against the glass, unable to touch their dying parents one last time. I saw healthcare workers, nurses who had dedicated their lives to caring for others, lying in the same beds as their patients, dying from the same disease they'd contracted while trying to help. He showed me young mothers who had been in the early stages of Alzheimer's, who had taken the treatment hoping to watch their children grow up, now dying and leaving their families behind. He revealed to me that by December 2026, over 1 million Americans would be dead, with millions more infected and no cure available. He told me that this second shaking would strip away even more of our illusions, our faith in technology, our trust in authorities, our assumption that progress was inevitable and always beneficial. He revealed to me that this would force people to look deeper, to seek truth and wisdom rather than quick fixes and easy answers. After showing me the medical catastrophe, he revealed to me that the third event would be environmental, a reminder that no matter how focused we are on our human dramas and tragedies, we live on a living planet with its own rhythms and cycles. He showed me that on November 8, 2026, a massive earthquake would strike the Pacific Northwest. He revealed to me that the Cascadia subduction zone, which geologists had long warned was overdue for a major event, would finally rupture in a 9.2 magnitude quake. He showed me the devastation in vivid detail. The earthquake would strike in the early morning, around 6:30 a.m., when most people were still home. He revealed to me that the shaking would last for nearly 4 minutes, an eternity during an earthquake. Buildings that hadn't been properly retrofitted would collapse. Bridges would fail. Gas lines would rupture, causing fires to break out across multiple cities. But the earthquake itself would only be the beginning. He showed me that approximately 20 minutes after the initial quake, a massive tsunami would strike the coast. Waves up to 80 feet high would inundate coastal communities in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. He revealed to me that entire towns would be wiped off the map, buildings, infrastructure, everything simply swept away by the wall of water. He showed me Portland and Seattle in ruins. Historic buildings reduced to rubble. Highways buckled and impassable. The I-5 corridor, the main transportation artery of the West Coast, completely destroyed in multiple locations. He revealed to me that the region would be cut off from the rest of the country, accessible only by air or sea for months. He showed me that thousands would die in the initial disaster, crushed in collapsing buildings, swept away by the tsunami, killed in fires and explosions. He revealed to me that hundreds of thousands more would be displaced, their homes destroyed, their communities simply gone. He showed me the humanitarian crisis that would follow. With the nation already reeling from the medical catastrophe, resources would be stretched impossibly thin. He revealed to me that refugee camps would be established in eastern Washington and Oregon, in Idaho, in Northern California, tent cities housing hundreds of thousands of displaced people. He showed me the desperation, families living in tents through the winter, children sick from exposure and malnutrition, elderly dying from lack of medical care and medication. He revealed to me that the federal government, already overwhelmed by the neurogen alpha crisis, would be slow to respond and woefully inadequate in its aid. By this point in the vision, I was overwhelmed. 3 catastrophes in less than a year, the nation would barely be functioning. But he showed me that there was more to come, that the shaking would continue until everything that could be shaken had been shaken. He revealed to me that in February of 2027, the United States would lose its position as the world's economic superpower. He showed me that on February 14, 2027, Valentine's Day, ironically, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and several other nations would simultaneously announce the creation of a new international currency system based on gold, oil, and a basket of commodities. He revealed to me that this new system would immediately replace the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Nations around the globe, tired of America's instability and chaos, would rapidly adopt the new system for international trade. He showed me the immediate effects. The value of the dollar would plummet virtually overnight. He revealed to me that Americans would wake up on February 15 to discover that their savings, their retirement accounts, their investments were worth a fraction of what they had been the day before. A lifetime of work and saving would be wiped out in hours. He showed me the panic that would follow. Banks would be overwhelmed with customers trying to withdraw their money. ATMs would run empty within hours. He revealed to me that the government would impose banking restrictions, limiting how much people could withdraw, which would only increase the panic and anger. He showed me the stock market in complete freefall, circuit breakers triggering repeatedly as trading was halted again and again, but unable to stop the crash. He revealed to me that by the end of February, the major indices would have lost over 70% of their value. Retirement accounts that had taken decades to build would be decimated. He showed me the unemployment that would result. Businesses, unable to access capital and facing impossible economic conditions, would shut down by the tens of thousands. He revealed to me that by March, unemployment would exceed 40%, worse than the Great Depression. He showed me the human suffering in stark detail. I saw families who had been middle class, who had done everything right, saved money, planned for the future, suddenly unable to afford food. I saw elderly people who had worked their entire lives facing retirement with virtually nothing. I saw young people graduating from college into an economy with no jobs and no prospects. He showed me tent cities springing up in urban areas, not dozens of tents, but thousands. He revealed to me that former professionals, former homeowners, former middle-class families would find themselves homeless, living in cars or on the streets. Food banks would be overwhelmed. Soup kitchens would have lines stretching for blocks. He showed me the social breakdown that would follow. Crime would spike as desperate people did desperate things. He revealed to me that some cities would become genuinely dangerous, with police forces overwhelmed and unable to maintain order. Finally, he showed me the fifth event, and this one was different from the others, more mysterious, less concrete, but in some ways more profound. He revealed to me that beginning in June of 2027, there would be a series of astronomical phenomena that scientists couldn't explain. He showed me strange lights appearing in the sky, not natural aurora borealis, but something different, something that defied scientific explanation. These lights would be visible across the globe, in all hemispheres, at all latitudes. He revealed to me that there would be unusual solar activity, flares and coronal mass ejections that didn't follow normal patterns. He showed me that instruments would detect radio signals coming from deep space that appeared to carry intelligence but couldn't be decoded. Strange sounds would be heard around the world, low-frequency rumbles and high-pitched tones that would be audible to millions but couldn't be traced to any natural source. He showed me the reaction these signs would provoke. Scientists would scramble for explanations, proposing theories that contradicted each other and failed to account for all the phenomena. He revealed to me that governments would try to downplay the events, worried about mass panic, but that the sheer visibility and undeniability of the signs would make cover-ups impossible. He showed me that these signs would cause even hardened skeptics and atheists to question their materialistic worldview. People who had never thought about spiritual matters would suddenly find themselves wondering if there was more to reality than they'd believed. He revealed to me that these phenomena would create a global sense that something momentous was happening, that humanity was on the threshold of something new. But he also showed me the danger. He revealed to me that many would interpret these signs according to their fears and preconceptions. Some would see them as evidence of alien invasion. Others would interpret them as harbingers of apocalypse and divine judgment. He showed me that fear would grip many hearts, that some would respond with panic and even violence. He told me that these signs would mark the beginning of what he called the Great Separation, not a physical rapture or divine judgment as some religions teach, but a separation of consciousness and perception. He revealed to me that humanity would increasingly divide into two groups, those who respond to the signs with fear, hatred, and clinging to old paradigms, and those who respond with openness, love, and willingness to embrace transformation. He showed me that those who chose love and openness would begin to experience reality differently. They would develop heightened intuition, deeper compassion, stronger connection to the divine and to each other. He revealed to me that they would begin to see through the illusions of separation and recognize the fundamental unity of all existence. He showed me that those who chose fear and hatred would become increasingly entrenched in their position, increasingly isolated and paranoid. Their reality would become darker and more constricted as they closed themselves off from divine love and connection. He told me that this separation wouldn't be instantaneous but would accelerate through the remainder of 2027 and beyond. He revealed to me that the signs in the sky were essentially catalysts, forcing everyone to choose which path they would take, which reality they would inhabit. After showing me the 5 events, Jesus gave me a specific message for those who call themselves Christians, for those who claim to follow him. He told me that the events I'd been shown would present the greatest test the modern church has ever faced. He revealed to me that many, far too many, who call themselves believers would fail this test. They would respond to the crises with fear rather than faith, with judgment rather than compassion, with tribalism rather than love. He showed me that many churches would close their doors to those in need, would hoard resources rather than sharing them, would choose political sides rather than standing for his principles. He revealed to me that many believers would use scripture to justify hatred, would condemn those who were suffering, would assume that disaster was divine judgment on their enemies. He showed me pastors who would preach messages of fear and condemnation, who would use the crises to manipulate their congregations, who would profit from people's desperation and terror. He revealed to me that many religious leaders would reveal themselves as wolves in shepherd's clothing, more concerned with power and influence than with serving his flock. But he also showed me a remnant, believers who would rise to the occasion with extraordinary courage, faith, and love. He revealed to me that these would be his true representatives during the dark times ahead. He showed me ordinary Christians opening their homes to those displaced by the earthquake, sharing their limited food with the hungry, caring for the sick despite the risk of infection. He revealed to me that these believers would demonstrate his love in practical, tangible ways, not with words and theological debates, but with action and sacrifice. He showed me house churches multiplying as institutional religion collapsed or revealed its corruption. He revealed to me that in living rooms and backyards, in community centers and parks, believers would gather for authentic worship, genuine fellowship, and mutual support. These gatherings wouldn't be about programs or performances, but about real community, shared meals, honest conversation, confession and forgiveness, practical help for those in need. He told me that during these crises, the true church would finally be revealed, not a building or institution or denomination, but a people, a community of those who actually follow his teachings rather than just claiming his name. He gave me specific instructions about how believers should respond. First, he told me that believers must choose love over fear in every circumstance. He revealed to me that fear would be the primary tool used to divide people, to justify cruelty, to rationalize selfishness. He showed me that every time believers choose love, even when it's costly, even when it's scary, even when others mock them for it, they demonstrate his nature and draw others toward truth. Second, he told me that believers must practice radical generosity. He revealed to me that in times of scarcity and crisis, the impulse will be to hoard, to protect what's ours, to take care of our own first. But he showed me that believers are called to the opposite, to share freely, to give without counting the cost, to trust that there's enough when we share rather than hoard. Third, he told me that believers must pursue unity across all the divisions that humans create. He revealed to me that race, nationality, denomination, and political affiliation are all illusions that hide our fundamental oneness. He showed me that during the crises ahead, believers must actively work to break down these barriers, to build community across all the artificial divisions, to demonstrate that his family is bigger than any human category. Fourth, he told me that believers must prioritize worship and praise especially, in the darkest circumstances. He revealed to me that praise is not denial of reality or pretending things are fine when they are not. Rather, he showed me that praise shifts our focus from circumstances to his presence, from fear to faith, from darkness to light. He explained to me that genuine praise opens us up to receive his strength, wisdom, and peace. He revealed to me that when everything around us is shaking and falling apart, praise anchors us to what cannot be shaken, his love, his presence, his faithfulness. He showed me that communities of believers who gather to worship and praise during the crises will become lights in the darkness, drawing others who are desperate for hope. Fifth, he told me that believers must speak truth with boldness but without judgment or condemnation. He revealed to me that many will be desperate for answers, for understanding, for meaning in the chaos. He showed me that believers who have maintained their connection to him will have insight and wisdom to share. But he warned me that this wisdom must always be offered with humility and compassion, never with arrogance or "I told you so" attitudes. He told me something that particularly struck me. He revealed to me that many who currently call themselves Christians will abandon their faith during these crises, while many who were skeptics or atheists will discover genuine faith. He showed me that suffering has a way of revealing what's real and what's pretense, what's genuine faith and what's just comfortable religion. Finally, he gave me a message about hope. He told me that everything he'd shown me, all 5 events, all the suffering and chaos and tragedy, is not the end of the story. He revealed to me that these are birth pangs, painful but bringing forth something new and beautiful. I woke up in a hospital room on December 24, 2025, Christmas Eve. My 3 sons were there, looking exhausted and terrified and relieved all at once. The doctors explained that I'd suffered a massive heart attack, that I'd been clinically dead for 8 minutes, that they'd performed emergency surgery to save my life. I wanted to tell my boys everything immediately, but I held back. I remembered what happened the first time when my ex-husband called me crazy. So I just held them, told them I loved them, and promised to take better care of my health. The hospital kept me through Christmas, and despite the circumstances, it was beautiful. Staff and other patients shared their celebrations with us. It reminded me that love and community matter more than material things, a preview of the lesson everyone would be learning soon. When I was released on December 27th, I had no money for medications and no idea how I'd pay for follow-up care. But I also had complete certainty that everything would work out exactly as it was supposed to. Now it's January 2026 as I write this. The first event is less than 3 months away. The others will follow through 2027. I'm sharing this message because I was told to, because people need to prepare not their pantries but their hearts, because believers need to know what's coming and how to respond. I know many won't believe me until the events begin. That's okay. When April comes and the constitutional crisis unfolds, when September brings the medical catastrophe, when November shakes the earth, remember this message. Remember that you are unconditionally loved. Remember that everything is as it's supposed to be, even when you can't understand it. Remember that everything will be all right. And most importantly, rise and praise. Rise in faith, not fear. Rise in service, not selfishness. Rise in love, not hatred. Rise in unity, not division. And praise, not as denial, but as declaration. Praise that acknowledges your circumstances but focuses on His presence. Praise that shifts your consciousness from fear to faith. Praise that opens you to receive the strength you'll need. The shaking is coming. But so is the transformation. Choose which side of the separation you'll be on. Choose love. Choose faith. Choose to rise. This is the message I died to bring back. This is what Jesus showed me. This is what's coming in 2026. Prepare your hearts.